The stars looked different from this far out. Commander Ethan Wright stood at the observation deck of the U.S. Horizon, watching as the massive space station Nexus 7 grew larger against the backdrop of unfamiliar constellations. After 20 years of humanity spreading to nearby star systems, this meeting would change everything. Nervous, Commander? Wright turned to find Lieutenant Kate Nelson beside him. The young xenolinguist had spent the past 3 years studying the languages of the 7 species that made up the Galactic Consortium. Not nervous, Wright said with a small smile, just aware of what's at stake. The UES Horizon carried Earth's best and brightest, diplomats, scientists, and a small security team. Their mission was simple but vital: establish peaceful contact with the consortium and secure humanity's place among the stars. Station control has cleared us for docking bay 12, announced the ship's pilot over the comm system. ETA 7 minutes. Wright nodded to Nelson. Time to gather the team. In the ship's conference room, the diplomatic team made their final preparations. Dr. Frank Holloway, a man with gray hair and kind eyes that had examined more alien biology than anyone else from Earth, checked his data tablet one last time. Remember, Wright told the assembled team, we represent not just Earth, but all human colonies. What happens today will affect generations to come. The ship shuddered slightly. As docking clamps engaged, Wright led his team toward the airlock, where they would take their first steps onto the station and into history. Nexus 7 was unlike anything humans had built. A massive wheel-shaped structure with sections adapted for each member species of the consortium. The air smelled different, a mix of unfamiliar gases that were safe but strange to human lungs. A delegation waited for them. At the front stood a tall, slender being with iridescent blue skin and 4 arms, Ambassador Zexatal of the Varu, the species that had founded the consortium thousands of years ago. Greetings, humans of Earth, Zexatal said, the universal translator making the alien sounds comprehensible. The Galactic Consortium welcomes you to Nexus 7. Wright stepped forward and bowed slightly, a gesture the diplomatic corps had determined would be understood across species. On behalf of Earth and all human colonies, we thank you for this welcome and look forward to peaceful exchange between our civilizations. The welcoming ceremony moved to a grand hall with a curved table where representatives from all 7 consortium species sat. Humans were given seats at one end. The aliens varied widely in appearance. Some resembled insects, others were more like reptiles or sea creatures from Earth, but all watched the humans with what seemed like interest. Your species has achieved much in a short time, said a reptilian being introduced as Trade Minister Hrusk. Faster than light travel only 80 years after your first spaceflight. Most impressive. Humans are adaptable, Wright replied. We learn quickly. Indeed, Zexatal said with what might have been a smile. That is precisely what makes your species so interesting. The first day of talks went smoothly. The consortium representatives asked many questions about Earth's history, technology, and culture. They seemed impressed by humanity's rapid progress and expressed interest in trade agreements. That night, in the quarters assigned to the human delegation, Wright felt cautiously optimistic. They seemed genuinely interested in cooperation, he told Dr. Holloway as they reviewed the day's events. Holloway nodded slowly. Perhaps. But did you notice how they kept returning to questions about our military capabilities, our resource distribution, our population growth rates? Standard concerns when meeting a new spacefaring species, I'd imagine, Wright said, though a small frown crossed his face. Maybe. Holloway didn't look convinced. While Wright and Holloway talked, Lieutenant Nelson was in her own quarters, reviewing recordings of the day's conversations. As a xenolinguist, she had been studying more than just words. She observed body language, vocal tones, and subtle cues that the translator might miss. Something didn't feel right. She noticed patterns in how the consortium representatives spoke, among themselves versus how they addressed the humans. Brief glances, small gestures. Nothing definite, but enough to raise her suspicions. On the second day, during a tour of the station's scientific facilities, Nelson managed to separate from the main group long enough to access a communication terminal. Using techniques developed by Earth Intelligence Services, she bypassed the basic security and intercepted data streams flowing through the station's network. What she found made her blood run cold. Hidden among regular communications were encrypted messages between consortium officials. Nelson's translation software struggled with the complex encryption, but enough came through to reveal the truth. The welcoming facade was a lie. The consortium had no intention of accepting humans as equals. Internal communications referred to humanity as the upstart problem and potentially uncontrollable. They discussed methods to restrict human expansion, exploit Earth's resources, and eventually bring the dangerous species under direct control. One message was particularly clear: Standard Protocol 17 for aggressive young species. Initial assessment suggests humanity lacks the patience for gradual integration. Recommend accelerated timetable. Nelson downloaded as much as she could onto a secure device and hurried to find Commander Wright. She found him with Holloway in a meeting with consortium scientists discussing potential knowledge exchange. She couldn't speak openly there, but managed to slip Wright a note. Emergency. Need private meeting. Now. Wright made polite excuses to step away from the discussion. In a small maintenance corridor, Nelson showed him what she'd found. If these translations are accurate, Wright said, his face grim, then this entire diplomatic mission is a sham. They've done this before, Nelson explained, pointing to references in the data. Other species that developed too quickly. They either restrict them to their home systems or eliminate them entirely if they resist. Wright's jaw tightened. We need to inform Earth immediately. The Horizon's communications are probably monitored, Holloway warned, having joined them after excusing himself from the meeting. We need to be careful. Wright made a decision. We'll confront Zexatal directly. With evidence in hand, maybe we can still salvage something. If not, we need to get this information home, whatever the cost. Later that day, in what was supposed to be a private meeting to discuss cultural exchange programs, Wright laid the evidence before Ambassador Zexatal. The alien's inner eyelids blinked rapidly, a sign of surprise, Nelson had learned. Then, surprisingly, Zexatal's posture relaxed. I see you are more resourceful than anticipated, the ambassador said, no longer bothering with the friendly tone. This is unfortunate but not unexpected. Young species often resist guidance. Guidance. Wright's voice was controlled but tight with anger. You plan to manipulate and eventually enslave us. Zexatal spread his forehands in a gesture that seemed almost apologetic. You misunderstand. The galaxy requires stability. New species, especially those that advance as quickly as humans, introduce chaos. They must be managed. Those who cannot be managed become threats, and threats must be eliminated. Humanity will never accept being managed, Wright said firmly. No, Zexatal agreed. We had already determined that about your kind. How unfortunate that you discovered our intentions so quickly. We had hoped for more time to study your weaknesses. The ambassador touched a device on his wrist. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Security breach in diplomatic sector, announced a computerized voice in multiple languages. Your ship will not be permitted to leave, Zexatal said, calmly. But your discovery changes little. The consortium has dealt with potential problems for thousands of years. Humanity is just the latest. Wright activated his emergency comm link. Horizon, this is Wright. Prepare for immediate departure. The mission is compromised. As security forces entered the room, Wright, Nelson, and Holloway fought their way out, aided by the small security team they had brought. They raced through the station's corridors toward their ship, pursued by consortium forces. They reached the docking bay to find the Horizon already under attack from station defenses. Captain Lisa Rodriguez, the ship's commander, had the engines running and weapons active. Commander, Rodriguez called over the comms. We're detecting multiple warships emerging from concealment around the station. They're blocking our escape vectors. Wright made the hardest decision of his life. Lieutenant Nelson, take Dr. Holloway and the evidence in the emergency shuttle. Use the confusion to slip away while the horizon provides cover. Commander, no. Nelson began to protest. That's an order, Lieutenant. Earth needs to know what we've discovered. The shuttle's stealth systems might get you through. As Nelson and Holloway reluctantly headed for the small shuttle bay, Wright rejoined the Horizon's crew. The ship broke free from the docking clamps, shields already flaring from weapons fire. All power to engines, Wright ordered. We need to draw their attention away from the shuttle. The UES Horizon surged forward, weapons blazing against the much larger consortium vessels. In the chaos, a small, dark shuttle slipped away, running silent and dark between the stars. The Horizon fought bravely but was overwhelmed. 3 years had passed since the UES Horizon was destroyed. 3 years since Lieutenant Kate Nelson and Dr. Frank Holloway had returned to Earth with the terrible truth about the Galactic Consortium. 3 years of preparation for a war humanity never wanted but could not avoid. Admiral Samantha Ellis stood at the window of her office in the Human Defense Alliance headquarters beneath the Rocky Mountains. Once this complex had been a simple military base. Now it was the nerve center of humanity's fight for survival. Admiral, they're ready for you in the war room, said her aide, a young officer named Jack Winters. Ellis nodded. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too much loss. She had been Commander Wright's mentor years ago. Now she carried his legacy and the burden of protecting Earth. Is Commander Nelson there yet? Ellis asked as they walked through the underground corridors. Yes, ma'am. Just arrived with Dr. Holloway from the Mars Research Facility. The war room was a large chamber filled with holographic displays showing Earth's colonies, defense systems, and the known territories of the consortium. Around a central table stood the leadership of humanity's defense efforts. Commander Kate Nelson had changed since her return from Nexus 7. Gone was the optimistic young xenolinguist. In her place stood a focused, determined officer who had spent 3 years studying the enemy and helping develop countermeasures. Admiral on deck, someone called, and everyone stood at attention. At ease, Ellis said, taking her place at the head of the table. Let's begin the Project Prometheus update. Dr. Frank Holloway stepped forward. The xenobiologist looked older now, his once kind eyes hardened by purpose. The alien technology we recovered from previous encounters has yielded significant breakthroughs, he said, activating a holographic display. By reverse engineering their shield technology, we've developed defensive systems that should be able to withstand their standard weapons, Nelson added. And thanks to what we learned about their communication systems, we've created quantum transmitters that they can't intercept or track. All our colonies and ships can now communicate without the consortium listening in. Ellis nodded with satisfaction. When news of the consortium's betrayal had first reached Earth, panic had nearly torn humanity apart. But faced with extinction, ancient enemies had become allies. Nations that had once pointed missiles at each other now worked together, pooling resources and knowledge. Major Reyes, report on weapons development, Ellis ordered. Major Alan Reyes was a stocky man with dark eyes that missed nothing. A former Special Forces soldier, he now led the team developing weapons specifically designed to target consortium weaknesses. "We've found something interesting," Reyes said, bringing up new images on the display. "The consortium has been the dominant force in this part of the galaxy for so long that they've grown complacent. Their ships have vulnerabilities they never fixed, because no one could exploit them, until now." He showed diagrams of alien vessels with key points highlighted. Their ships generate powerful energy fields, but the emitters have a refresh rate of 3.7 seconds. A precisely timed series of smaller impacts, followed by a main strike during that microsecond of vulnerability, can penetrate their defenses. "Can we time our weapons that precisely?" asked General Kim, the head of Earth's ground forces. Reyes smiled for the first time. "We already have. The new Lancer missile systems can deliver exactly that kind of synchronized attack. In simulations, they've shown an 87% success rate against consortium-level shielding." A murmur of approval went through the war room. It was the first truly good news in months. "What about our colonies?" Ellis asked, turning to the holographic display of human settlements beyond Earth. Nelson touched the controls, zooming in on the major colony worlds: Mars, Europa, Proxima Centauri, B and Tau Ceti. We've transformed them into fortress worlds, she explained. Underground cities, planetary shield generators, automated defense systems. If the consortium attacks any colony, they'll face much more resistance than they expect. Ellis nodded. And the asteroid belt? Holloway took over, showing the belt between Mars and Jupiter. As you ordered, Admiral, it's now our hidden shipyard and weapons platform network. We've hollowed out dozens of the larger asteroids to build ships and store supplies, all concealed from long-range sensors. The meeting continued as each department reported their progress. Richard Blackwood, once Earth's most skilled diplomat, now led a different kind of diplomatic effort. We've established contact with 3 species who chafe under consortium rule, the silver-haired man explained. They're too afraid to rebel openly, but they've provided valuable intelligence. More importantly, there are signs of division within the consortium council itself. Some members are questioning the wisdom of confronting humanity directly. Ellis absorbed all the reports, asking questions and offering guidance where needed. When everyone had finished, she addressed the room. 3 years ago, we learned we weren't alone in the galaxy, she said quietly. We also learned that the stars are more dangerous than we ever imagined. The consortium sees us as a threat to be eliminated. They believe we're too unpredictable, too aggressive, too unwilling to submit. She paused, looking at each person in turn. They're right about one thing. We will not submit. Humanity has faced extinction-level threats before, from nature, from ourselves. Each time we've adapted and survived. This time will be no different. The Admiral brought up a new image on the display. The UES Defiance, the first of Earth's new Warden-class battleships. Nearly a kilometer long, it represented everything humanity had learned and developed in the past 3 years. The first fleet will be ready within 6 months, she said. Until then, we remain on high alert. Dismissed. As the others filed out, Ellis asked Nelson and Holloway to stay behind. There's something you should know, she told them once they were alone. Our deep space monitoring stations picked up consortium scout ships at the edge of our solar system last week. Nelson's face tightened. They're testing our defenses. Exactly, and soon they'll make their first real move. I want you both on the response team when that happens. Later that day, at the research facility buried deep under the lunar surface, Dr. Holloway showed Commander Nelson their latest project. We call it the Ghost Protocol, he explained, leading her into a secure laboratory where a small probe-like device floated in a containment field. Based on the stealth technology that got us home from Nexus 7, but vastly improved. Nelson studied the device. How effective is it? In tests, it's completely invisible to all known consortium detection methods. We could plant these on their ships, their stations, even their homeworlds, and they'd never know. Perfect for gathering intelligence, Nelson mused, or delivering targeted strikes. A technician interrupted them. Dr. Commander, Admiral, Ellis has ordered you to return to Earth immediately. We've detected a consortium scout fleet approaching Proxima Centauri. Within hours, Nelson and Holloway were aboard a fast transport back to Earth. As they watched the blue planet grow larger through the viewport, Nelson thought about how much had changed and how much remained at stake. We lost good people on the horizon, she said quietly. Commander Wright deserved to see what we've built. Holloway nodded solemnly. The best tribute we can offer him is to make sure his sacrifice wasn't in vain. The transport docked at the orbital defense platform that now circled Earth like a protective ring. As they made their way to the command center, alert signals began blaring throughout the station. All personnel to battle stations, announced a calm voice over the speakers. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. They entered the command center to find Admiral Ellis already there, watching a holographic display of the Proxima Centauri system. A dozen red dots approached the human colony world. We've been expecting this, Ellis said without turning. Now we'll see if our preparations are enough. On the display, the red dots suddenly met a swarm of smaller blue ones emerging from hidden positions around the colony. The first true battle between humanity and the consortium had begun. It's time, Ellis said, her voice firm with resolve. Let's show them that humanity won't go quietly. The colony world of Proxima Centauri b shone blue and green in the light of its red dwarf star. After years of terraforming, it had become humanity's most successful off-Earth settlement. Now it was about to become a battlefield. Captain Olivia. Martinez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the holographic display as the consortium fleet approached. 35 years old with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, Martinez had spent the last 3 years studying every scrap of information about consortium battle tactics. Tactical assessment, she ordered her second-in-command, Lieutenant Paul Dawson. 17 consortium vessels approaching, Dawson reported. 1 command ship, 8 heavy cruisers, and 8 support vessels. Estimate arrival in Proxima orbit in 45 minutes. Martinez nodded. The consortium had sent a serious force, enough to crush any normal colony's defenses, but Proxima was far from normal. Status of our forces? She asked. The Defiance and our 4 escort ships are in position, behind Proxima's moon. Automated defense platforms are powered down but ready. The colony shield is at full strength but inactive to avoid detection. Ground forces are in position. Martinez took a deep breath. Send the coded alert to Admiral Ellis. The enemy is committed. Then signal Dr. Holloway on the Phantom. Tell him to prepare his team. While the UES Defiance waited behind Proxima's moon, another vessel drifted silently through the darkness of space. The UES Phantom was unlike any other ship in Earth's fleet, a small, sleek frigate covered in stealth materials that absorbed rather than reflected both light and sensor scans. Dr. Frank Holloway checked his equipment one final time. Around him, his special operations team did the same. They were an unusual mix. Scientists, hackers, and special forces soldiers, all trained for one specific mission. Signal from the Defiance, reported the communications officer. The consortium fleet has entered the system. Operation Trojan is a go. Holloway nodded to the team. Remember the plan. We get aboard their command ship, plant the virus in their network, and get out before they know we were there. What if they detect us, Doc? Asked Sergeant Lynn Garcia, the team's security lead. Holloway's face was grim. Then we make sure the virus deploys anyway, whatever the cost. On the bridge of the consortium command ship Eternal Vigilance, Fleet Commander Krexvar watched the approaching human colony world with contempt. A massive being with gray scaled skin and 6 yellow eyes, Krexvar had put down 3 problem species in his long career. Scans show minimal defenses, reported his sensor officer. The humans have a small orbital station and some primitive satellites. No significant military presence detected. Krexvar made a sound that might have been a laugh. The Council was concerned about these creatures. Pathetic. Begin standard. Subjugation pattern. Target their communications first, then power systems. As the consortium fleet moved into attack formation, Krexvar felt confident. The humans had shown some surprising ingenuity during first contact, but they were still young, still primitive compared to the consortium's thousands of years of technological development. Energy spike from the planet, called out the sensor officer suddenly. They're activating some kind of shield. Krexvar leaned forward. Impossible. Their technology isn't advanced enough for planetary shields. Before he could give new orders, chaos erupted across his command deck. Multiple new contacts appearing from behind the moon. Energy signatures from the asteroid field, their weapons platforms. Small craft launching from hidden bases on the surface. Krexvar's 6 eyes blinked rapidly in alarm. A trap. The humans had set a trap, and he had led his fleet right into it. Behind Proxima's moon, Captain Martinez watched the holographic display light up as Earth's forces revealed themselves. The 5 human warships accelerated toward the consortium fleet, while dozens of automated missile platforms emerged from hiding places in the asteroid belt surrounding Proxima. All ships execute Battle Plan Thermopylae, Martinez ordered calmly. Squadrons 1 and 2 engage their support vessels. Squadron 3, target their sensor arrays. Defiance will engage the command ship. The UES Defiance surged forward, its powerful engines pushing the massive warship to speeds the consortium sensors couldn't believe possible. for a vessel its size. Martinez had studied ancient Earth naval battles, particularly those where a smaller force defeated a larger one through superior tactics and knowledge of the terrain. "Weapons locked on target," reported the tactical officer. "Lancer missiles ready." "Fire sequence Alpha," Martinez ordered. "Time your shots exactly as planned." The Defiance launched a series of smaller missiles that impacted against the command ship's shields at precisely timed intervals. As the consortium ship's shield emitters went through their predictable refresh cycle, the main Lancer missiles struck the momentary vulnerability. The result was spectacular. The command ship's shields collapsed on one side, and the Lancer missiles detonated against its hull, causing significant damage. Throughout the Proxima system, similar scenarios played out. Human ships and automated platforms fired and coordinated, patterns that exploited weaknesses the consortium never thought needed fixing. Drone swarms targeted enemy weapon ports with precision strikes, while ground-based ion cannons fired up from the planet's surface. Aboard the consortium command ship, HFY struggled to understand what was happening. How were the humans coordinating their attacks so perfectly? How did they know exactly when and where to strike? "Shields at 60%, called his defense officer. "We're taking damage faster than regeneration can compensate. Launch all fighters," HFY ordered. "Target their main warship." But as the consortium fighters prepared to launch, something strange happened. Their launch bay doors failed to open. Their targeting systems showed impossible readings. Communication between ships became garbled and filled with contradictory orders. Unknown to HFY, the UES Phantom had slipped alongside his command ship during the chaos of battle. Using tools developed from studying consortium technology, Holloway's team had cut through the hull at a maintenance access point and infiltrated the vessel. Moving silently through the ship's corridors, they reached a central data node. Holloway connected a small device to the alien computer system and activated it. The virus, designed by Earth's best programmers based on analysis of consortium code, spread through the enemy network like wildfire. "Virus deployed," Holloway whispered into his communicator. "Beginning extraction." But before his team could retreat, a security patrol rounded the corner. Sergeant Garcia raised her weapon. "Go, Doc," she shouted. "Get back to the ship. We'll hold them off." Holloway hesitated, only a moment before nodding. The mission had to succeed. He and two others raced back toward the extraction point, while Garcia and the rest of the team engaged the consortium security forces. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Martinez watched as the consortium fleet's coordinated defense suddenly fell apart. Ships fired at wrong targets or failed to fire at all. Communication between vessels became impossible as the virus turned their own systems against them. "Their command ship is crippled," reported Lieutenant Dawson. "The rest of their fleet is in disarray." "Signal all forces," Martinez ordered. "Execute. Final phase." Across the battlefield, human forces pressed their advantage. The carefully planned trap had worked perfectly. One by one, the consortium vessels were disabled or destroyed. After 3 hours of battle, only the command ship and 2 cruisers remained, all heavily damaged. "Captain," called the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the enemy command ship. They're surrendering." A murmur of disbelief ran through the bridge. No one had expected the consortium to surrender. In all their history, they had either won or fought to the last ship. "Accept their surrender," Martinez said after a moment's thought. "Inform Admiral Ellis we have prisoners, including their fleet commander." As the battle ended, the UES Phantom rendezvoused with the Defiance. Dr. Holloway's team had suffered losses, but the mission had succeeded beyond expectations. The virus had not only disrupted the enemy fleet, but it also copied vast amounts of consortium data before they could lock down their systems. In the Defiance's conference room, Martinez and Holloway debriefed the captured fleet commander, HFY. "How?" the alien asked, his voice a mixture of anger and disbelief. "How did primitives like you defeat the consortium's finest fleet?" Martinez leaned forward. "Because you underestimated us, Commander. You thought we were predictable. You thought we were weak. The consortium has ruled the stars for thousands of years," HFY said bitterly. This defeat means nothing. The Council will send more ships, more fleets. Perhaps, Holloway replied. But first, they should know what we learned from your ship's database. He activated a display showing a star map with a location highlighted, the Consortium capital system, and at its heart, a massive space station called the Archive. Krexvar's 6 eyes widened in shock. Impossible. That information is restricted to the highest levels. Not anymore, Holloway said, and neither is the information about division in your council. Some of your leaders believe the war against humanity is a mistake. For the first time, uncertainty showed in the alien commander's posture. What do you intend to do? 1 year after the Battle of Proxima Centauri, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The Consortium had not launched another direct attack after their stunning defeat, but tensions remained high across known space. In the heart of Earth's lunar military base, Admiral Samantha Ellis stood before the gathered leadership of the Human Defense Alliance. The large chamber was filled with officers, scientists, and representatives from every human colony. Operation Thunderbolt is ready, Ellis announced, her voice steady and determined. After a year of preparation, we can now strike at the heart of the Consortium and deliver our message. The holographic display in the center of the room showed their target. The Consortium capital system, Varu Prime, with its 7 inhabited planets and massive central space station, the Archive, where the Consortium Council ruled. Commander Nelson will lead the mission, Ellis continued, nodding to Kate Nelson, who had been promoted after her role in the Proxima victory. She will command our most advanced vessel, the UES Retribution, along with a small but elite strike force. Nelson stepped forward. The past year had changed her further. Her eyes held the confidence of a leader who had seen battle and emerged stronger. The mission has 3 objectives, Nelson explained, highlighting different points on the holographic map. First, to penetrate Consortium defenses using the intelligence gathered from Commander Krexvar and our network of allies among subjugated species. The display shifted to show a series of jump points and sensor blind spots that formed a narrow, winding path to the heart of enemy territory. Second, to coordinate with resistance forces on multiple worlds who will rise up simultaneously when we arrive. Nelson nodded to Richard Blackwood, who had spent the past year building an unprecedented alliance of species who chafed under Consortium rule. Blackwood, his silver hair now showing streaks of white from the stress of his secret diplomatic missions, stood and spoke briefly. 23 species have pledged to join our cause. Some have suffered under Consortium control for centuries. They've been waiting for this moment. And the third objective? Asked General Kim. Nelson's expression grew more serious. To deliver humanity's final warning directly to the Consortium Council. In the silence that followed, Dr. Frank Holloway activated another part of the display, showing a network of small devices. These are quantum disruptors, he explained. Over the past year, we've managed to plant them on key Consortium worlds and installations. Once activated, they will temporarily disable planetary defense systems, proving we could have destroyed those targets had that been our intention. Ellis stepped forward again. This is not about revenge or even victory in the traditional sense. This is about changing the rules of a game that has been rigged against new species for thousands of years. The gathered leaders nodded in agreement. After a year of studying Consortium history from the data stolen during the Proxima battle, they understood that the aliens had been suppressing and controlling emerging civilizations for millennia. Humanity would be neither the first nor the last to suffer this fate, unless someone changed the system itself. 2 weeks later, Commander Kate Nelson stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution as it prepared to depart Earth orbit. The ship represented the pinnacle of human engineering combined with adapted alien technology. Its sleek hull contained weapons systems that could challenge anything in the Consortium fleet, stealth systems that could hide it from the most advanced, sensors and engines capable of jumps thought impossible by Consortium scientists. Final systems check complete, reported the ship's executive officer, Commander Jason Harris. All systems green. The escort vessels are standing by. Nelson nodded. Signal the fleet. Operation Thunderbolt begins now. The Retribution and its 5 escort ships, each specialized for different aspects of the mission, activated their engines and accelerated away from Earth. Soon they reached the jump point and vanished into the swirling energies of hyperspace. Journey to Varu Prime would take 6 days, following a complex path designed to avoid consortium patrols and monitoring stations. At each step, Nelson felt the weight of responsibility grow heavier. Not just for her crew, but for all of humanity and the many other species counting on this mission. On the 3rd day, they received an encoded transmission from one of Blackwood's contacts. The message was brief but concerning. The consortium council had become aware that something was brewing. They had increased security throughout their territory and had begun cracking down on suspected resistance members. "Should we abort?" asked Harris after Nelson shared the news with her command staff. Nelson considered the question carefully. Aborting meant giving the consortium time to prepare, to close the security gaps they had discovered. It might mean losing their one chance to change the balance of power. No, she decided. We accelerate. If they know something's coming, let's not give them time to ready themselves. Signal the resistance. The uprising begins 12 hours after our arrival, not 24 as planned. The journey continued with the human ships pushing their engines harder, taking more risks with each jump. Twice they narrowly avoided consortium patrols. Once they had to fight their way past a sensor station that detected their passage, but they kept going, driving deeper into enemy territory than any human ships had ever ventured. On the 6th day, they arrived at the edge of the Varu Prime system. Before them lay the heart of the consortium, 7 planets circling a bright yellow star, each world a center of power for one of the 7 founding species. And at the system's gravitational balance point floated the Archive, a space station the size of a small moon, where the Council made the decisions that affected hundreds of species across thousands of worlds. "We are in position," Nelson announced. To her crew, "Activate stealth systems, begin the approach." Using the revolutionary hyperspace jump calculations developed by Earth scientists, the Retribution and its escorts did something the consortium believed impossible. They jumped directly to a position just 50,000 kilometers from the Archive, bypassing all the system's outer defenses. As they reappeared in normal space, alarms began blaring throughout the consortium capital. The human ships had arrived exactly during a full council session, when all senior representatives were gathered in one place. "They've detected us," Harris reported. "Defensive systems are activating." "Deploy countermeasures," Nelson ordered calmly, "and open a direct channel to the Archive. All frequencies, all languages." As consortium defense ships scrambled to respond, Nelson stood before the communication array, her image soon to be projected into the council chambers themselves. "This is Commander Kate Nelson of the United Earth Space Force," she began. 3 years ago, your representatives betrayed our diplomatic mission and killed our people. 1 year ago, you sent a fleet to destroy our colony at Proxima Centauri. Today, we stand in the heart of your territory to deliver humanity's message. Throughout the consortium's territory, resistance forces began their coordinated uprising. On 23 worlds, subjugated species rose up against their overseers. Not with the goal of defeating the consortium militarily, that would be impossible, but to demonstrate that the days of complete control were over. "We come not for vengeance or conquest," Nelson continued, "but to offer a choice." She nodded to Dr. Holloway, who activated the quantum disruptors. Across the system, planetary defense systems suddenly went offline. Weapons platforms shut down. Shield generators failed. "As you can see," Nelson said, "we could have chosen destruction. Instead, we choose to talk." In the council chamber, 7 alien leaders watched in stunned silence as their most secure defenses failed before their eyes. Some reacted with rage, others with fear, and a few with thoughtful calculation. "Humanity demands recognition for ourselves and all sentient species as equals with full rights to self-determination," Nelson declared. "The days of the consortium dictating who may travel the stars and who must remain confined are over." She activated another display, showing evidence recovered from the archive's own records, proof of past genocides against species deemed unmanageable, of manipulations and betrayals stretching back thousands of years. "We have shared this information with every species in known space," Nelson said. "The truth can no longer be hidden." The Retribution and its escort ships remained in position, despite the growing number of consortium vessels surrounding them. It was a standoff unlike any in galactic history, a young species dictating terms to powers that had ruled the stars since before humans had discovered fire. "You have a choice," Nelson concluded. "Join us in creating a new galactic order based on cooperation and mutual respect, or face a war you cannot win. Humanity is armed and ready. We will not be subjugated. We will not be controlled. This is our first, last, and only warning." 6 months later, representatives from 87 species gathered on a neutral space station to sign the Sol Accords, a new framework for interstellar relations that guaranteed the rights of all sentient beings to develop without interference, to expand into unclaimed systems, and to defend themselves from aggression. Not all consortium members agreed to the new terms.